Love the Philadelphia Eagles as much as we do? Then buckle up and stay right here at Eagles Nest News. Your home for every bit of drama, excitement, and action all season long. Let's dive into some real Eagles talk today because this team never sleeps, not even during the bye. I'm literally sitting on my couch right now, running the double screen setup like always. On one screen, Monday Night Football between the Chiefs and Commanders. On the other, Game 3 of the World Series with the Blue Jays and Dodgers. I've been a baseball lover since I was a kid, listening to Phillies games on the radio with Harry Cullis calling the action. But even while watching the Fall Classic, I can't stop thinking about our Eagles and what's going on behind the scenes. So let's get to it. The Birds made a couple of roster moves this week, and that's not something you can just overlook, especially with the NFL trade deadline right around the corner. Cornerback Perry Nickerson has been released from the active roster after being elevated the past few weeks because of injuries in the secondary. With Ja'Cory Bennett on injured reserve, Nickerson got some time, but now he's out for now. The team also released defensive end Titus Leo from the practice squad, which raised some eyebrows, but the logic behind it makes sense when you piece it all together. The Eagles recently opened the practice window for Ja'Cory Bennett, who was a full participant late last week, but didn't dress for the Giants game. That was a surprise to many since Adoree Jackson was unavailable. But the expectation now is that Bennett rejoins the active roster once the bye is over. Honestly, I can see Nickerson coming right back on the practice squad. He's versatile, played well in the preseason, and can line up both inside and outside. That's likely why Leo got the boot. They needed that spot for Bennett's return. And you know what? Vic Fangio himself admitted that the team didn't get a long enough look at Bennett as cornerback number 2. So maybe after the bye, he finally gets that chance. The Eagles face Green Bay in Week 10, and that could be the perfect moment to shake things up in the secondary. Speaking of that group, I've seen enough of Adoree Jackson. I'm done watching him get significant snaps. He's had his opportunities, but it's time to let Keely Ringo and Ja'Cory Bennett take control. And Ringo, man, let's give him his flowers. Against the Giants, he was fantastic. When you barely hear a cornerback's name during a game, that usually means he's doing his job. Pro Football Focus gave him a coverage grade close to 80, his highest mark all year. Sure, the Giants' wide receiver room isn't exactly terrifying, but that kind of performance still means something. It's a good sign for a young player still finding his rhythm. So now the question for Fangio and the defensive staff becomes, who starts opposite Quinyon Mitchell after the bye? Do they stick with Ringo, bring Bennett in, or rotate them depending on matchups? And then there's always the looming question. Will Howie Roseman make another move at corner before the trade deadline hits on November 4th? Because if you know Howie, you know he doesn't like to sit still. Adam Schefter even said on the Pat McAfee show that he'd be shocked if the Eagles didn't make a move before the deadline. That's just who Howie is. The most aggressive general manager in football. He's always working the phones, always trying to find that next piece to put this team over the top. We've already seen him pull off multiple trades this season alone. He brought in Fred Johnson right before final roster cuts, and that move has quietly paid off. Johnson's been crucial, especially filling in when Lane Johnson was banged up. The Eagles have been running those jumbo sets with 6 offensive linemen, and it's been working beautifully. You can see in the balance, Hurts is more comfortable, the play action opens up, and the run game finds its rhythm again. Then there's Tank Bigsby. Howie traded for him a couple of weeks after the Will Shipley injury, and what a pickup that's turned out to be. Against the Giants, he exploded for over 100 yards, and for the first time in more than a decade, the Eagles had 2 players hit the century mark on the ground in the same game. Bigsby runs angry, runs downhill, and brings that physical edge this backfield needed. He's not built for kick returns, but as the number 2 running back behind SAQUON, he's thriving. Well, Shipley's now the 3rd option, and A.J. Dillon's completely out of the picture. You also have Ja'Cory Bennett, who was another mid-season trade. We're still waiting to see the full payoff there, but it's clear that Howie's moves haven't just been about the short term. They're setting up for the future too. Bennett and Bigsby are both under contract for next year, and even wide receiver John Mechie, who's had a tough road battling leukemia and recovering from an ACL injury, is someone they can keep around as a restricted free agent. Unfortunately, he hasn't made much of an impact yet. He barely got touches against the Giants, even with A.J. Brown sidelined. It's tough to say if he'll ever regain the explosiveness he had at Alabama. That version of him was electric, a true playmaker, but sometimes the body just doesn't bounce back the same. Now, let's talk trades because this is where Howie shines. When you think about what areas this team could realistically upgrade, the conversation starts with two spots, pass rusher and cornerback. Those have been the thinnest positions this year. But here's the thing. The Eagles' defensive front finally woke up against the Giants. 5 sacks, 24 quarterback pressures. It was a clinic. Easily their most dominant outing of the year. And guess what? Reinforcements are on the way. Nolan Smith is set to return after the bye, and Brandon Graham is coming back for his long-awaited season debut before retirement. Those are like mid-season acquisitions without giving up a single draft pick. That's why, as much as I love trade season, I wouldn't be shocked if Howie decides to stand pat. When you factor in those returns, it's almost like adding 2 new players to the rotation. Still, if he does make a move, I don't see it being a blockbuster for someone like Max Crosby or Trey Hendrickson. The price would just be too steep in draft capital. Instead, maybe he swings something more subtle. Flip a 3rd or 4th round pick, a depth move that keeps the future intact while still strengthening the roster. And while all this roster maneuvering is happening, you can't ignore the background noise coming from New York. Giants fans have been losing their minds since that loss, blaming refs, blaming everything but their own team. Typical. The Eagles didn't just beat the Giants, they owned them. 16 wins in the last 20 meetings, and the gap still looks massive. That's why the fan reactions have been so funny to watch. Philly fans showed class when Cam Skattebo went down, giving him a standing ovation as he was carted off. Even Big Dom went to visit him in the hospital. But still, New York fans called Philly fans the scum of the earth. It's crazy how sensitive they get when they lose. They've been crying about officiating, acting like the refs decided the game. Come on, there were bad calls on both sides. If you lose by 18 points, the officials didn't beat you. You beat yourself. Giants fans love to talk tough, but when the L hits, suddenly everyone's a victim. That's New York in a nutshell. Loud, proud, and always convinced they got robbed. Meanwhile, the Eagles just keep handling business, stacking wins, and proving once again why they're one of the most complete teams in football. With the bye week here, Howie Roseman's working the phones, Vic Fangio's tweaking the defense, and the locker room's getting healthy at the perfect time. The second half of the season is about to begin, and if you thought the first half was good, just wait until these reinforcements hit the field. And here's where things start to heat up again for Philadelphia. The bye week gives the Eagles a rare moment to breathe, reset, and prepare for the final stretch. The vibes around the NovaCare complex are confident, and you can feel the hunger in this group. They're not satisfied with simply leading the division. They're chasing something bigger. Every player has said it in one way or another, unfinished business. That loss in the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago still stings, and this roster has been built to make sure that pain turns into fuel. Jalen Hurts, as always, is the steady heartbeat of the team. His leadership never wavers. He's not the loudest guy in the room, but when he speaks, everyone listens. His command of the offense, his poise, and his ability to rise when the lights are brightest continue to set the tone for the entire locker room. And speaking of Hurts, let's take a second to appreciate just how much he's evolved this season. The decision-making has been sharp, his pocket movement looks cleaner, and he's distributing the ball to multiple targets again. Losing A.J. Brown temporarily could have rattled lesser quarterbacks, but Hurts has handled it with maturity. He's found ways to involve Devonta Smith more, and tight end Dallas Goedert has quietly put together a string of reliable games. The balance between run and pass feels smoother, especially with the offensive line finally stabilizing. Jason Kelce, even in what could be his final season, continues to anchor that unit like the Hall of Famer he is. The man's football IQ is off the charts. The run game, too, has come alive again, and that's a big deal for a team built on physicality. Tank Bigsby's breakout performance wasn't just exciting, it was symbolic. It reminded everyone that the Eagles' identity starts in the trenches. Run the ball hard, set up the play action, let Hurts control the tempo. That formula has worked for years, and it's not going anywhere. The addition of Fred Johnson to those heavy offensive packages has given Philadelphia a new wrinkle. It's old-school football in a modern playbook, and teams are struggling to counter it. Defensively, things are starting to click as well. Fangio's system has taken time to settle in, but the communication and discipline have improved. Against the Giants, the pass rush looked alive for the first time in weeks, collapsing pockets and forcing Daniel Jones into bad decisions. Nolan Smith's pending return will only make that rotation more dangerous, especially with Brandon Graham set to step back onto the field. You can already picture that first snap, Lincoln Financial Field roaring as one of the most beloved Eagles of all time takes the field for one last ride. The question now shifts to the secondary. Quinyon Mitchell has solidified himself as the #1 corner, and it's going to be fascinating to see who lines up beside him. Keely Ringo made his case, and Jacorian Bennett is ready to prove his worth after recovering from injury. Fangio loves versatility, and both of these young corners bring that in spades. They're physical, athletic, and have the kind of short memory you need to survive at this level. If both develop as expected, the Eagles could suddenly have a young, dynamic corner duo for years to come. Of course, no discussion about this team is complete without mentioning Howie Roseman. The man just doesn't stop working. While other GMs might play it safe, Howie operates with urgency. He sees windows of opportunity and attacks them. That's why this franchise has remained competitive for so long. Whether it's flipping late-round picks for solid contributors or identifying talent that others overlook, he's built a roster that's not just deep, but smartly constructed. Every move has purpose, even the ones that don't grab headlines at first. But beyond roster construction and game planning, there's an undeniable swagger returning to Philadelphia football. You can sense it from the fan base to the players themselves. It's that gritty, blue-collar edge that defines this city. The connection between the team and the fans is different here. When the Eagles win, it's not just a game. It's a reflection of Philadelphia's identity. Tough, resilient, unbothered by noise. You could see it last week when 70,000 fans stood and cheered for Cam Skattebo as he was taken off the field. That moment wasn't about rivalry or scorelines. It was about humanity and respect. That's the side of Philly that the national media rarely shows. Meanwhile, over in New York, Giants fans are still drowning in excuses. They're blaming officials, weather, the turf, anything but their team's inability to compete. It's become a comedy show at this point. They talk about bad calls while conveniently ignoring that their offense couldn't move the chains. They're furious that Lane Johnson didn't get flagged on one play, yet they forget the missed penalties that went their way. That's what happens when you've been dominated for years. The frustration starts to eat you alive. The Eagles have owned this rivalry for nearly a decade now, and it doesn't look like that's changing anytime soon. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our Philadelphia Eagles. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are circulating through the locker room in Philadelphia, and the tension is practically audible over the headsets. Sources close to the team report that SAQUON Barkley, the electrifying running back known for turning broken plays into highlight reels, has made it clear he wants to play on Wednesday. Yes, you read that right, Wednesday. The chatter started early this week when insiders noticed Barkley showing up at practice with a noticeable intensity, pushing drills harder than usual, almost as if signaling a countdown. Teammates describe him as laser-focused, yet impatient, tapping into a competitive edge that hasn't been this pronounced since the last playoff run. But there's a catch. Head coach Nick Sirianni seems to be holding the reins tightly. Sources say the coach is taking a more cautious approach, prioritizing the long-term health of his star back over immediate thrills. The tension between Barkley and Sirianni has become a topic of quiet debate among staff and players alike. Some believe the young running back's urgency comes from a desire to prove himself on the field, especially with the season entering a critical stretch. Others suggest it's just his usual fiery competitive spirit. Either way, whispers of a potential Wednesday appearance have fans buzzing. fueling speculation that Philly could see a dramatic midweek shakeup in their game plans. Overhead in the locker room, the headset chatter reportedly crackles with intensity, coaches debating, players holding their breath. Every word, every pause, seems to carry extra weight. Rumor has it that staffers are bracing for the possibility that Barkley's impatience might lead to a headline-making standoff, with Sirianni's measured strategy clashing against the running back's raw ambition. As the countdown to Wednesday continues, insiders warn that the city could be in for a spectacle both on and off the field. Will Barkley get his wish and take the turf midweek, or will Sirianni stand firm, keeping his stars sidelined for a calculated payoff later in the season? One thing is certain. The energy in Philly is electric, and every fan with a headset tuned in is holding onto their seats, waiting for the next move in this high-stakes chess match between one of the league's brightest talents and a coach determined to play the long game. Rumor, anticipation, and a touch of tension. Philadelphia may be on the brink of a week that could define both Barkley's season and Sirianni's leadership in ways the city won't soon forget. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Philadelphia Eagles, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.